Welcome back, travel fans. I'm Morgan from the very unofficial travel guides, and if you're watching this video, you're about to see a premiere on my channel, something I've never really done before, and it's a story time video. In comparison to the kind of videos that I usually make where I'm like traveling and vlogging and showing you destinations or hotel rooms and stuff like that, while I've been traveling, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened to me that I either haven't gotten on camera or I haven't talked about it like it really happened. And I decided that I should start telling you guys some of those stories. And one of the first stories that I'm going to tell you in this, series is the first class flight on Delta. Because in my video from last weekend, I talked about that in comparison to flying economy on Emirates, which was amazing. So that video is linked in the description below. And I sort of compared it to flying on Delta in first class. And he looked at me like I had three eyes. I have made a video about the experience flying on Delta first class, and the video was not a good video because of everything that happened in the video. So if you want to see that video, it's linked in the description below, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about it now, like from this perspective. Marcus and I were home visiting my family in Minnesota, and we had been there for like, I think a week, and then we were planning to fly to California for a week to go to Disneyland and California Adventure for the first time. By the way, in case you can't tell, I'm kind of sick. I've got a cold, so that's why my voice sounds like it does. We planned our trip, and we're looking at the prices of flights, and neither one of us had ever flown business class or first class. I don't remember exactly how we got the idea. I think it was because we booked from Hamburg to Minneapolis and then from Los Angeles back to Hamburg. The flight from Minneapolis to Los Angeles I had to book separately. And so as I was looking at the flights and the prices, I think on Expedia or maybe directly on the Delta website, there was like, one of these offers for only $299 more, you could upgrade to first class. And it was, I don't remember exactly how much. It wasn't $299, it was even less than that. Because that seems like a lot of money to me, and I know that I wouldn't have paid that much to upgrade to first class. It was something like, I want to say $170. And the flight from Minneapolis to Los Angeles, it's a good 4 hours, if not 5 hours. I should have checked it. Fail. I would never, ever pay money to fly first class like on a flight shorter than 4 or 5 hours. For me, I just don't understand why that's even worth it, because the price difference is ridiculous and it's such a short flight, and when you walk through the first class section, there's like no difference. But so I was assuming that because it was a longer flight, even though it was a domestic flight, and because it was like a top carrier, Delta is not Southwest, it's not Sun Country, it's like a real airline. I'm sorry, I don't know how else to describe it, but you know what I mean. I hope you know what I mean. I just was expecting that it was going to be a higher level of service. And I think that in this whole story, that's probably the biggest problem, was my expectations versus the reality of what Delta was offering on this flight as first class. So Marcus and I decided to splurge, pay this extra $170 or something like that to fly from Minneapolis to Los Angeles, first class on Delta, just to see what the experience was like. And I especially wanted to make a video about it to show you all. And it all just kind of went wrong. The flight, first of all, it was a really early morning flight. And it was at a period in my life, sounds like it was like so long ago, but it was at a time where I was struggling with motion sickness and trying to figure out how to compensate for it the best. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you know I love roller coasters. I grew up like going to amusement parks every weekend in high school, doing road trips just to ride coasters, and I've been on over 400 different roller coasters around the world. But the older I get, the more difficult it's getting for me to ride roller coasters because I get motion sickness and it makes me really, really depressed. So it was sort of at the time where that was becoming like a big issue for me. And I was trying to figure out like the best mix of what I can do without motion sickness medication and where I need it. I had gotten some new motion sickness pills from my doctor here in Germany that were supposedly more effective and less, I don't know, harsh than the stuff I was getting in the States. And that morning, when we were on our way to the airport, I decided to take one of these pills just in case the flight was bumpy. Because that's one thing that I really can't deal with, is being stuck in a small container that's moving around, you know, like a simulator ride or a bumpy flight. That's the end of the day for me, and I'm like, and it's just awful. If you're somebody who never has a problem with motion sickness, then say thanks to God, because it's a really awful thing to have to deal with. It's like getting an instant hangover. Anyway, so I had taken one of these pills on the way to the airport, and I realized very quickly that they were really strong. And I felt like stoned. I mean, not only was it early, I had slept like 4 hours. Woken up, I don't think I had any breakfast, took one of these pills just to be sure, and on the way to the airport I was like, that's what it felt like. I felt like I had been drugged. Which is of course good, because then I didn't have to worry about experiencing motion sickness, but then it was just so hard to like be my normal self and talk to the camera and remind myself, take out your camera, tell the people what's going on. And this is what I remember. I remember we checked in, and of course when you've got first class you can go to the shorter line, and that seemed... It didn't seem like anything extra special to me. It just seemed like a shorter line, but of course, you know, I guess that's worth paying a little bit more money for, because sometimes the lines can be huge to check in. We went to the gate and they started announcing boarding, and first class always gets to board first. However, as soon as they started announcing boarding, the mass of people that crowded around the gate was so huge that I was like, well, great. So if I want to, you know, use this advantage, then I have to like fight through this crowd of people, and I don't know, to me that's not worth it. And of course that's not the fault of the airlines, that's the fault of the other travelers. And this is a pet peeve that I have. If you're boarding a plane, there's always an order. There's either groups or they call from row to row, and please don't get up and crowd the boarding area so that the other people can't get on the plane before it's time for you to board. You have a ticket. Your seat is reserved. It's written on there. There's no reason to do that. It's not like somebody's gonna take your seat and then you're not gonna end up getting to sit next to your family or whatever. You've got tickets. Just wait until it's your turn to board. Sorry, that's a little rant of mine. Eventually, we did get on the plane, and the first class section on this domestic flight from Minneapolis to Hamburg was a little bit different. There was obviously a separation between that area and the economy class. Instead of it being, I think, 3, 3, and 3, it was 2, 2, and 2. And the seats were bigger, they were leather, they were very comfortable. Of course, it wasn't like, you know, the kind of seats that go all the way down like you've got on a flight from New York to Singapore or whatever, but that's not necessary on a 4.5 or 5 hour flight. There was a noticeable difference in the size and the comfort of the seats, that's for sure. One thing I do remember, and especially to compare it now to flying on Emirates, is that the screens in the seat on Delta first class were these tiny, I mean, they were like this big. And on Emirates economy class, it's bigger than a normal size iPad. It's like the size of an iPad Pro, I would even say. I don't know what the diagonal is. As the other passengers were boarding and it was close to everybody getting on the plane, then here's another difference between economy and first class. The flight attendants came and they asked us if we wanted anything to drink before we left. And because this was like a special thing for us, I thought it would be fun to have, you know, like a little glass of champagne. And I asked the flight attendant, it was a guy, I said, oh, you know, this is kind of special for us. Could we have a glass of champagne? And he looked at me like I had three eyes. He was like, we don't have any champagne. And that was embarrassing to me because I don't know why. I was thinking, first class, they must always have stuff like that. It would seem to me like it would be a given that they have, that they have champagne in first class. And I feel like oftentimes when I'm boarding a plane and you have to walk through the first class area and the first class galley to get back to economy, I feel like I've very often seen champagne already poured into glasses sitting there. But not on Delta, or not on this flight, or maybe, like I said, because it was like 7:30 in the morning. Anyways, there was no champagne, and the way that I was told that there was no champagne was kind of embarrassing to me, but maybe that's my fault for asking for alcohol at 7:30 in the morning. So I ordered a cranberry juice, or maybe I think I just ordered a glass of water, to tell you the truth. And another difference is it came in a real glass, so not like a tiny little plastic cup, it was like a real glass. And so I don't know if that's worth paying the extra money, but it was a noticeable difference, and that's why I thought I would mention it. Keep in mind, by this time I'm feeling like the full effects of this motion sickness medication, and I was drowsy. There's no other way to describe it. If I wasn't talking to Marcus and there wasn't something interesting happening, I was literally like nodding off in my seat. And I kept trying to remember to film things, and I was so disappointed already, not only because of the way it had began, but also because I just realized no matter how hard I try, this is not going to be a good video just because of the way I feel right now. We were getting ready to leave the gate. I think they had even closed the doors, actually. And then the captain came on and made an announcement and said something like, okay, people, this is something that I really have to do, but I literally have to ask you all to stand up, grab your bags, and get back out of the plane because we're missing the safety documents. This is something that, for me, it doesn't factor into my review of the first class flight and service because everybody on the flight had to deal with this, and that has nothing to do with being in first class or not being in first class. Apparently the story was every morning before the first flight, there has to be a safety check on the aircraft, and there's like a clipboard someplace in the cockpit or whatever, and the captain has to sign off and say, yes, I see, the safety check was done, I accept it, and now we can leave. But that clipboard was missing, or the document that was supposed to be on it was not there. And so before we could leave, we all had to get off the plane, and the safety people had to come and do the whole check again, and that includes the inside of the cabin. So we literally had to get up, put our coats back on, grab our bags, everybody got off the plane, and then we went back into the waiting area and waited for them to continue the safety check. And here I am again, trying to make a video of it all and trying desperately to stay awake and to like seem alert, and it just wasn't working. And if you watch the video I made of that video, you'll see me kind of trying to deal with that. Once we got back on the plane, and it all went actually pretty quickly, then we left the gate and flew away, and then it came time for breakfast. Like I said, it was an early flight. And we had the choice of, I think it was like an omelet with fresh fruit, or cereal and yogurt, or something like that. They came down the aisle, they asked us what we would like to eat. Marcus ordered the omelet with the fresh fruit, I think it was, and I don't like omelets, so I ordered the cereal and yogurt. It wasn't like in economy class where they come down the aisle and they've got everything in the cart. They take your order and then they go to the galley and sort of like prepare it and bring it to you. So when it arrives at your seat, it's not packed in all the plastic and tin foil. They've already like prepared it for you, and it comes like on the tablet ready to eat, which is a nice thing. Is it worth paying that much money for? I don't know, but that's how It was. So they brought Marcus's order, and this was the same flight attendant, the same guy who told me kind of snottily that they don't have champagne. So he took our order together, went away, brought Marcus's food, and he didn't bring me anything. And then he took the order from the people behind us, went away, brought both of their food, and then took the order from the people behind them, went away, and brought their food, and I was sitting there with nothing to eat. And I thought, you know, what I ordered doesn't even have to be warmed up. What's going on? And I waited so long until I think he came to clear Marcus's empty plates. And I was like, okay, if he hasn't brought me anything until now, this is obviously a mistake. And so he was taking Marcus's stuff away, and I was like, am I gonna get something to eat? And he's like, oh, did you order something? And I said, yeah. Yes, I did. You took my order at the same time that you took his order. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. Well, what did you want? And I was like, oh my gosh. That was like 10 minutes ago. So I ordered the cereal and yogurt again, and he went away and brought it back. And he's like, I'm sorry, I don't know how that happened. And yeah, and then I ate, this is all I remember of the rest of the flight. I ate the cereal, or maybe I didn't even eat it. I don't know. I remember fighting as hard as I could to stay awake, to see what else was going to happen. And I just totally conked out. And Marcus had to like wake me up when we were at the gate to get out because I was so sleepy. And I was also just kind of over the whole thing. So the summary is we paid a couple hundred extra to fly from Minneapolis to Los Angeles in first class on Delta. And based on that experience, I would definitely never do it again. Not on a domestic flight and not on Delta. I'm not saying I wouldn't try it again on another airline, but I think I would do a little bit more research in advance to see, okay, what on this flight and in this machine and on this airline, what am I actually getting for this extra money? For me, it would be especially interesting to do it on a flight where I'm flying from the States back home to Germany, because that's always so tiring. It's the end of the vacation, and you know you gotta fly home, and you're gonna have to go to work the next day. And for me, I would love to have like just this really special experience on the flight home, especially if it means I can sleep, because that's the really hard thing flying back, is the whole first day you're just so tired, and it's like a major jet lag danger. And so if I could just sleep the whole flight home coming back from the States to Germany, that would be awesome. So that's the story time. That was a long video. This is probably going to end up being much longer than I expected it to be. Have you guys ever flown first class or business class or economy plus? Do you think it's worth it? Oh, I just thought of another thing. And this is something that really actually pisses me off. I never got the miles. We paid the extra money for first class, and when you fly first class, you get a lot of extra miles for that, and they never were written to my account. And I wrote several letters, and I made copies of the tickets and all that, and to this day, I have never gotten the credit. So, thanks, Delta. Like I was saying, please write to me your experiences in the description below, and subscribe to my channel here. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you want to see more of these Storytime videos, let me know. I will definitely be doing at least one more to tell you a little update about my summer working at Six Flags and getting fired from Six Flags, because since I posted that video, I've gotten in touch with a lot of the people that I performed with then, and they told me a little bit more about what they remember, how it all went down. And so I wanted to tell you that too. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.